and thanks for joining us today on Pizza Cultura, part of the Pizza Club Network. I am really excited to be back here with my good friend Pepe, all the way from Naples, Pizza Dixit in the IG world, and also reconnecting with Dareen, who is joining us now from Montreal. And I had the pleasure of interviewing last year in Cairo. So welcome, Dareen, and
Thank
we're
you.
thrilled to have you here on the program today.
Thank you so much. I'm really happy to be here. Hi, Pepe. And hi again,
Hi,
Stephanie.
Dareen. And hi, Stephanie. Glad to be back.
Hey, Pepe.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, let's talk a little bit about your pizza journey, Doreen, because I think you have such a really cool kind of full circle now that you're back in Montreal. Tell us a little bit about your adventure going to Cairo and starting What the Crust.
Sure. So I'd initially gone to Cairo because my husband was offered a really good job there, and my dad was Egyptian, so I thought I'd never lived in Egypt. I thought it would be a really good adventure. And at the time, like I was going with very young babies and needed a year or two to settle in, but I had already started baking a lot from home. And then it kind of became an obsession. Like I was just for years, like baking and baking and baking. And, at some point, my husband's like, we have to monetize this. Like there wasn't at the time in Egypt, there wasn't really anyone doing, like French style loaves, I want to say sourdough. There wasn't like a traditional Neapolitan pizza, and it's my personal favorite. I had been to Italy and Naples, and I'd eaten Neapolitan pizza around the world, and I knew there was a standard, for what it needs to be like and taste like, and so I thought if I were to choose, like for my first venture, opening a bakery, multiple USPs and single known, that's SKUs. Sorry, I meant SKUs. Yeah, yeah. So multiple SKUs versus like a really good pizza that I can perfect like the dough and focus on that. I thought pizza would be the right place to channel my obsession, and so I went to Naples. I trained in Naples. I ate so much pizza, like as many places and in as many forms as I could
And
try.
you trained at ABPN, right?
Yeah, so I trained at AVPN, of course. So I wanted to make a real Neapolitan pizza. Like I wanted there to be like no, I didn't want it to be a Neapolitan style pizza, which is kind of what people would, like the way they would, like tiptoe around what they're actually making. And so I wanted a true Neapolitan pizza. I went to AVPN. I studied with them. I did an internship as well in one of their partner restaurants. So, and by then we had already like found a place. I had ordered my oven from Naples. I went to see Mannaforni. So the people who produced the ovens, watched the process. It was really cool. And then we just went for it. So in Egypt, I had the fortune of being able to hire a nanny because my kids were still very young. And it just so happened that as we were opening, COVID happened and my mom was in Cairo. So she got stuck there. And so, but we were allowed to operate because we were like an essential service. And we just, like, we were either gonna we spent all our savings. My husband had an apartment in Cairo. We sold it to fund this. Like it's completely self-funded, self-designed, self-everything. And it's like, well, we either go completely broke or we just go for it. Like we have to start. Like we already did everything. Like even if
There's
COVID's
no
on
choice.
lockdown, yeah, there's no choice. Like we'll deliver, we'll just deliver. And so that's how we started. We started with just deliveries in our neighborhood. We were lucky that the neighborhood we lived in and we opened in is like an expat friendly neighborhood. So there were Italians, like there were a lot of embassies, there were a lot of international schools, there were UN agencies around us. And so word spread that there was, this lady, which was very unusual for Egypt, like making pizza, and she's making like proper, like it tastes like Italy. And we were lucky as well because all the hotels had closed. So all of the suppliers who were importing like Italian and European produce and cheeses and flours, and they like had no one to sell to anymore. So at first they like didn't really take us seriously, but now they were like, please buy our stuff, you know? So I'm
Please
like,
call us
give
back.
me. Yeah, I'm like, let's go. Like no one in Egypt would have been crazy enough to put like really expensive Italian cheese on pizza. So we were crazy enough to do that. And it just like it's all a blur from there. Like I want to say like, there was like clear cut like, progression, but it just happened so fast and it blew up. And by the time like COVID, was relaxing, like everyone was back, going out and working and like, and we were just packed, like we were so tiny all the time. Like, so, like at the beginning, like we were packed all the time. We could barely sit. Like with COVID, I think first 8 or 10 people and then 20 people. And then, I don't know how we were
Lines.
like fitting. Yeah. Like I didn't want lines. I was scared of the lines because it was just post COVID. We set up a reservation system and then it was just like one thing after the other, thankfully it worked out and we now have. So we franchised our brand and our concept out, but we remain the central kitchen. So my original location is now serving locations across Cairo and 3 others like temporary like summer locations on the north coast. And
Amazing.
we also opened. So I got to do the bakery. We had investors who were interested in the sourdough because I was in that time as well developing the baguettes and still working on it. I bought a bread oven, and I was supplying the French school with baguettes and breads, and so that also led to like a subsidiary. So it's a sourdough bakery by What the Crust, and they have 2 outlets now as well. So
Dareen, I have a question.
Yeah.
Which could sound strange coming from a Neapolitan, but how come the choice of making Neapolitan pizza? So were you inspired by anything that you tried? Did you know already about the style? So how come out of the many style of pizza you could choose, or just making another traditional way to make pizza, you just went straight for Neapolitan?
So the easy answer is because it's my favorite. Like it's the one I love,
So you did try before. You did try before you started making
Absolutely.
it.
Like I had been to Italy. I'd had Italian friends. Like I had tried AVPN pizzerias like around in the Middle East and around the world, like in Europe, and I liked that consistency. Like everybody has their touch, but you know what you're getting. Like when it's a very clear distinction. Like when you're having a real Neapolitan pizza, it's different and it's like that. And and then the pizza chefs can play with their dough, with their the like variety of ingredients, and you still have the space to be creative, but there's a certain standard that is held across all true Neapolitan pizzerias. And it was just like I just loved it. Like I'm also a traditionalist when it comes to food. So I'm the kind of person where it's like if I'm buying a tabbouleh, don't put red peppers in my tabbouleh. Like no, it has to be made this way. And like I feel the same. At the time, I felt the same way about pizza. Like if you're gonna call it Neapolitan pizza, like it has to be this way. Yeah, I wanted to go back to the source. Like I wanted to make something that's authentic, that bridges, continents. Like we were the first AVPN pizzeria in Africa. I think we still are. Like I wanted you to have, I believed you could have an authentic experience outside of Naples, especially in a place like Egypt, where, maybe like it's harder, I think, to come across like authentic foods, like especially international foods. Like a lot of Egyptians now are starting, like especially those who were raised abroad, are starting to come back and like start things up in Egypt. At the time, it was unique. Like what we did was unique. So
Well, especially like you mentioned, importing product into Egypt. And as you mentioned, you're the first AVPN certified in the country, not just in
the
Africa
continent,
total.
yeah.
Yeah, in the continent. You mentioned COVID, and how suppliers were like trying to get rid of product, but how did you kind of figure out what you wanted to have on your pizza since you did go through the ABPN school, probably was easier to kind of think of importers, or maybe they helped you figure out who the importers you should work with. Like that would come to Africa, or did you guys have to do all the work?
We had to do the work. Like, I mean, I was already, like, I was, I aware of the different flour choices that I had. For example, like I'll start with flour because it's the most, one of the most important things. And it was just a question of trying to find those importers in Egypt, because as a restaurant, like it's a bit unlike here, where as a business owner, I could import my own stuff. In Egypt, it's just this whole other license, and it's impossible. Like it's crazy. It's a 2-year process to try to get the rights to just import something. So there were already known importers in Egypt who supplied the hotels mostly. And their question was like, oh, well, how much do you want? What's your consumption? And I'm like, I don't know. I like, how do you, like, it's so hard to try to predict.
To start, yeah.
Because
like
for
how many
them,
50-pound bags of flour are you going to need? And like, they want you to buy a pallet, but you don't even know if you're going to get through a 50-pound bag.
Well, I do, but I mean, I don't know, like they want a consistent, like, consumption rate, and I don't have that yet. It grows, like, or it changes, and they want to import a certain amount, that they know, like, this is one consignment, like it's gonna serve that many clients, for that many months. So it was like, I mean, we just had to figure it out. Of course, like with the cheeses, that was the hardest, because fresh, like, flour is, it's a dry product. Like it was easier to find choice. But with cheese, like we basically just had a choice, for Italian cheese. And then a little later, it became 2 or 3 choices. And then eventually, like, I think one of the things I'm most chuffed about, like as you say in the UK, like, is when a business is successful, like you change the market. And one of the ways that we've changed the market is we created demand for Italian style cheese in Egypt, and it was Italians who came and opened cheese factories in Egypt, because our, like, water buffalo is the Italian water buffalo,
they're from.
like, yeah, like we have the buffaloes, they're from here. That was, that, like, after a few years, especially when Egypt at one point, like, completely, like, locked down on imports because they wanted to encourage local, development and, like, and produce.
Yeah, nationalizing.
Exactly. They, it's like miracle of a situation happened where I just walked into the restaurant. There was a guy in my office just sitting there, and he's like, "Ciao, Dareen. I am Max. I have the cheese." He's like, "Dareen, it's not like in Italy, but it's close." And it was like he was right, I'm sorry. I mean, the accent is nice, and I love the Italian accent.
No offense taken, don't worry.
We totally understand. We understand.
But it was such an Italian thing for him to do. Like, he literally was in my desk, like, on his feet, so it was really good. Like he was right. He was honest. Like, it's not like in Italy, but it's as close as you could possibly get it to Italy.
And
now I know. In Egypt, in Egypt.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm Italian, my cheesemaker is Italian, my equipment is Italian, like the only thing that's Egyptian is the milk. And it's the same water buffalo, So we
That's
had
so
access.
fascinating how it's like come through again, like how cheesemakers most likely, like, they may not have been making buffalo mozzarella, centuries ago, millions of years ago, but now they're bringing that back into Egypt, which I think is, like you said, it's all through food, which is fascinating. Don't you think that, Pepe?
Great.
Like having people, Italians that moved to Egypt now making mozzarella?
I think that shows exactly what Dareen said. They created a demand, and that's something that I already see happening in other countries where they're starting to produce locally because it was easier. I wouldn't know if it's cheaper, but definitely it's easier in terms of logistic producing locally than importing. I was curious about, because now seeing that you create a demand, your business is so successful that you're franchising. But I would like to think back to the beginning of the business, because since you've been so disruptive and you were basically the first to make Neapolitan pizza, I would love to know if you had to apply some marketing strategies to make your product known? Because it was basically a new product. So how did it reach the new audience?
Yeah, like
You know,
education of your customers.
okay, so that's a great question because, like, okay, so before making pizza, my husband and I are ex-advertising professionals, and we thought, like, I was a copywriter, he's a planner, and we thought, like, if we don't have a marketing budget, like we sell this to clients, we did this in agencies, and if we can't do this for ourselves, like then we're bad advertisers or bad, like, marketing professionals, and I thought, I because it's different, like what we're doing is like for the Egyptian market, those who, maybe the expats, like they honestly were our driving force. Like a lot of expats helped our cause, and then even more so, I would say the Egyptians who have a strong connection to Italy, because we have strong trade relations with Italy and Egypt, and maybe less so now. At one point, there were a lot of Italians in Egypt and a lot of Egyptians in Italy, and so the Egyptians who spoke the local language, came from the local culture, and still understood what we were making. I think they were our biggest supporters, and they helped like spread the word, just word of mouth in Egypt. Like we're very Egyptians, and most like Eastern cultures, I'd say, are very a collectivist culture. Like we talk. So when something's good, like you're just gonna talk about it, and someone else is gonna talk about it. That just in the beginning, that's how it happened. It was word of mouth. It was us. I was also handling the social media. I did the website. I did all of our online presence, and through social media, I would try to educate, like, like what a crispy, like thick pizza, or this is not, like we're serving the opposite, and it's a traditional pizza. This is how it is. This is how you eat it. This is how you lift it. Like we would make little posts, this is how it's fermented, because bread in Egypt, like even though we invented bread, it's become a very fast moving kind of product. Like food, like bread is fermented quickly and like served to the masses, and it's like it was very easy for me to say, no, we're going back to what the ancient Egyptians gave us, which is what inspired Neapolitan pizza and all of the other breads that have come, like later on, is the process of a slow and long fermentation that is more digestible, that is, better for you, that is, and tastier, like, most importantly. So yeah, so I know a lot of it was just through social media, like zero marketing budget. I have never spent a dime on on sponsored ads or any of that stuff. Um I did my own reels, like we did our own videos, our own posts, my own copywriting, because this was my job. And we tried to make it funny, like I studied, like I wanted to be an animator when I was younger, so I did study 3D modeling and animation. So I knew how to write a script, like a short, and direct the staff and the team, and they would love it. Like it was like a team building effort, for us to make a mini Instagram film, and those things kind of just helped like spread the word. So yeah, I hope it answers the
And a lot of
question.
word of mouth because your product is good.
Yes, I believe that. I believe that if you make something good, like people will come. Because we opened in a like tiny little place, like we weren't even a real like structure, like barely, we were barely a real
You
restaurant.
were
That's
like
what
a
we could
window.
afford. Yeah, we were like the garage of a villa. That's like what we actually were. Like we were the garage of a villa, and we've just had to kind of expand like through, different spaces as the years went on. And it was, I believe, like if you make it doesn't matter, like location, like no, if you're good, like people, like that's the whole point of Michelin. Like if you're good, you will drive, you will travel to go, like if 3 stars, you travel to that place. So that means it's not about the location or where you can be open in the middle of nowhere, but if you are outstanding, people will come. And thankfully people came like into our little like garage of a place, because the pizza was good.
I think sometimes the contrast between the quality of the product and the experience and the fact that the place it's so hidden, it actually makes it more stand out because it's sort of like a hidden secret ready
Yes.
to find
Yeah.
out, and a word of mouth that is just spreading, and people that just want to try this new sensation. I think in some cases, like you said, a Michelin restaurant, this helps a lot.
Yeah. It helped us. I mean, thankfully, like it worked, thankfully.
And now you're back in Montreal. And so you and your family have moved back to Montreal, Canada. And what are your plans now for pizza and the world of What the Crust?
So, I mean, we have to open here, like I think a part of me used to feel like, Egypt would be a good place to fail because it wouldn't cost us as much to fail and to try. And now I feel like, well, actually, like if we could make it in Egypt, we could probably make it anywhere because like we've had to overcome so many hurdles in Egypt. Like I had no consistency in my like ingredients, I had a lot of like trouble trying to make sure that the pizza stays the same across the years and across the branches and across, you know, like political instability even, and economic instability that we've had, I think 3 or 4 devaluations to our pound, to the
Mm-hmm.
Egyptian pound in the last few years. So our menus had to change, our pricing has had to change, everything has had to change. And I've had to somehow make sure that none of the customers can feel it or can taste it. Like I remember a summer when Egypt decided to just like close in on imports. We had to buy any Italian flour we could find in the country. Because we were Caputo and we were pretty consistently Caputo, and then all of a sudden there was no more Caputo. So like whatever, give me whatever. And we just bought out because we were making across like the branches maybe 1,000 pizzas, like 1,000 dough balls a day, like anywhere between let's
Wow.
say it's 600, 800,000, and I need the flour.
Yeah, you can't make a dough ball without flour.
Yeah, and we tried local flours, but even the local flours are inconsistent because we don't produce all the wheat ourselves anymore. Like we don't make enough wheat in Egypt to feed all like 120 million people. Like we have to import, and then there was the Ukrainian war, and so I had to in that summer. I think I changed the recipe like for the flour maybe half a dozen times, like because it depended on which flour we were using, and somehow like I was always explaining to our staff like you the final result is what matters. So you work backwards, because you want this is what you want it to taste like at the end, and this is what you want it to look like. And these are the properties of the flour, and we have to work backwards to get to the same result. Like it might need to ferment longer or less, or have more salt or less,
Or more
more
salt,
water
yeah.
or less. Yeah. So I don't have that issue here. Like I
Thank
feel like
God you're a
kind of,
baker.
thank God, like honestly, thank God. I just was obsessed with the science of it too. Like my dad is a scientist, and like I really, I mean, the modernist bread and pizza, like those books, like are like the Bible for me. I yeah, I don't. I feel like we don't have these hiccups in Canada. Like we'll have maybe different problems. Like it's a different country, you'll have a different problem, but at least I can have consistency with my product, and I think that's a great start. Like
I
I,
mean,
I want to
Manitoba
explore.
wheat is known world renowned, and Manitoba is in Canada, so there is a
Yeah,
lot of wheat in Canada. You don't have to
there
worry
is.
about that one,
It is, but it's
but it's
too
different.
hard for pizza. Yeah, it's too
Yeah.
hard. It's a hard wheat. Like even in Italy, they'll use Manitoba flour, but for things for different things, not for pizza. Like it's a harder flour. So yeah. So the plan is like we have to do this year. We're in the planning stages. Like we did our feasibility studies, and now we, are looking for a location, uh, and yeah, we're getting the ball rolling. Like I did take a well-deserved break, but I'm starting to really get excited again that this might actually happen. So fingers crossed.
Do you think you're gonna change anything in the way? Well, I mean, in terms of way to adapt to the new market, do you think there's gonna be anything you will change? And I'm not talking about the recipe of pizza, of course. I'm talking about things like branding or communications or other things that you think will help you to stand out in a different market, like it could be Montreal.
Yeah, these are things that we are trying to figure out. Like for sure, I feel some things have to change. Definitely. Like, I mean, we're not starting from scratch. Even if it is in Canada, like
Mhm.
already that's like, I don't have to start from scratch. So we already have a vibe, for the place. We already have a style like to communicate as well. I don't think these things have to necessarily change. I think they just have to grow. Like they have
Mhm.
to be a bit more
Push
mature.
forward.
Yeah, I've grown. Like I've changed. I wanna upscale a bit. And I don't mean necessarily like be more fancy on the interior or anything. Like we're not that. We're not a big like conglomerate like with like millions of dollars. Like we're not that. We're still a mom and pop shop. It's still gonna be self-funded, but I do wanna. I feel like I want to, you know, kind of like concentrate. I don't know how to explain it, but I just really wanna be able to concentrate on making the best possible dough and pizza that I can possibly make because I don't have the hiccups that I have in Egypt. Like I can pick my favorite tomato, I can pick my favorite cheese, and I can, play with the flours to kind of bring it up to its best possible expression. And here for the communication, I mean we have language laws in Quebec. I have to communicate in French, but
Yes.
but because we
The
are
Quebecois
like
are very strict.
Quebecois, yeah, they're very strict. So, but I mean, it's like, I hope they
That's a
don't
new
make me.
challenge.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a challenge for me. I'm a French speaker, but
You're from
yeah,
Quebec. Yeah.
like, but I hope no one's gonna ask me to change the name. Like, that's just the only thing. So we're trying to.
Which, by the way, I love.
Oh, thank you. So I'm gonna have to figure out like what the French version of what the crust is. Like, but hopefully not. Like, hopefully not. So yeah, well, I mean, I'm
That's
playing
super
around a lot
exciting.
already. Yeah, it's exciting. Like because I'm still like I'm like my sourdough's still here. Like I'm thinking maybe it should be a sourdough pizza. I don't know. Like I don't honestly know yet, but I do feel like it can grow. Like I had a baby and now it's a teenager.
Exactly.
Yeah, it can grow.
Well, Dareen, this was amazing. Thank you so much for your time. I'm really excited to see you in the very near future at Pizza Expo. This will be your first
I'm
Pizza
so,
Expo, right?
it will be my first pizza expo. Yeah, I mean,
Amazing.
the trek
Oh,
from I wanted to go every year, but the trek from Cairo to Las Vegas was
I
like I
totally
couldn't,
understand.
yeah. But
That's a
now
long way
now
to
it's
go
just
for
like
an expo.
I can escape the cold for a couple of days. So I'm excited.
Yeah, exactly. That's even better. You can get warm for a little bit. Doreen, do you want to tell us where we can find you on your IG and anything else you want to mention on the social side so we can make sure that everyone connects to see what you're up to?
Yeah, so on Instagram we're at what_the_crust. Online we're whatthecrust.com, all in one word. And our Instagram, like I've taken just because I have taken a break, I've given the chance for the rest of our team to like have a bit of a time on our Instagrams. So right now it's slowly like you'll see more of our team members online and some of the events that we take part in Egypt. Like we're still quite active. Whatthecrust.com might have a /Canada soon, so keep an eye out.
I love it.
Yeah, and yeah, I think that's it. Thank you.
Pepe, anything new and exciting in your world you want to give a shout out to?
No, not really, but I will just remind about my profiles. So pizza.dixit on Instagram, Dixit. And if people want to look me up on the website, it's a pizzadixit.com. So it's pretty easy. You just type that on Google, you will find me.
Awesome.
Awesome. It was great
Yeah.
to see you again, Pepe. Thank you so much for joining us today, Doreen. If you
Thank you.
want to
Thanks for
check
having
out
me.
the YouTube, oh, anytime. If you want to check out the YouTube channel, it's I Need Pizza Club. Please click and subscribe so you can see all of the new episodes popping up. And also follow I Need Pizza Club on the IG. And we look forward to seeing everybody at Expo, and keep in touch. Ciao.
Yes, I will. Thank you
Ciao,
so much.
awesome.
Ciao, ciao.
Bye.
Thank you
Nice
so
to meet you,
much.
Pepe. Ciao.
Ciao, ciao.
Thank you.